Hey, church family, Pastor Brent here. We've started a new series this week called What Is? And over the next 6 weeks, we're going to be kind of diving into some of the basic questions of the faith and trying to go deep in them so that we can answer the questions about God for ourselves and so that we can share them with others. So what we're going to do over the next 6 weeks is take your questions, particularly after the sermons, and answer them in short little videos like this. So over the next couple of weeks, submit those online, and I'll come and hopefully answer some of them for you. So what I wanted to do today to kind of kick us off was kind of go back over the sermon and answer a question that I didn't fully get to answer because I didn't have time in the sermon. So in the sermon, we really looked at two things. What is God? Like, how can we know who God is? And then who is he? And so when we talked about how can we know God? How can we know who he is? We gave a couple answers for that. One, there was this inner sense, like that everyone deep down has this sense that there's something else out there. The second was we can look at creation. We can look at the stars and the human body and the Grand Canyon and the beach and the moon and gravity, and we can look at all the complexity of creation and see that it has a designer. And I gave the example of someone who finds a pocket watch walking down the beach. When they pick up that pocket watch and they see all the gears and the intricacies of how that watch works, the only conclusion they could really come to is that someone designed that watch. Well, there's one more kind of argument, if you will, that I wanted to share with you that I think is super helpful in asking the question, why and how do we know that there is a God? And that is the moral argument. What does that mean? I would say that Romans chapter 2 really fleshes this out. And that is that every person throughout time, people have a sense of morality. We have a sense of right and wrong. Romans 2 basically says that people who have never been given the law, like the Ten Commandments and the laws of the Bible, Gentiles who have never been given those things, who have never heard of them, they still follow them without even knowing them. They still know murder is wrong. They still know that other things are wrong, and they know what's right. Why is that? And Romans 2 is going to make the case that it's because that we're all created in the image of God, that God has placed his law on our hearts. And so because all of humanity has this sense of right or wrong, it is evidence that God has put that there. Evidence that we are from him as someone who is good, knows good and evil, that we know good and evil because we're from God. It's another example would be how the animals don't act like that, right? The animal kingdom has no sense of morality. And that leads to another question. Why is it that humanity does not live out the worldview of, say, naturalism, or an atheist worldview says there is no God? Ultimately, an atheist worldview says there's no such thing as evil, right? Because it's just survival of the fittest. The strong survive, the weak die. But why don't we act that way? If that was true, why don't humans act that way? Why don't we shut down spending millions and millions and billions of dollars in hospitals for people who are suffering from diseases and genetic conditions or whatever? Why do we spend so much time and money trying to make them better? Why don't we just let the weak die? Why do we care? Well, it's because we're not just naturalistic creatures. We're not just living out this naturalistic worldview where the strong survive and the weak die, because God's law is written on our hearts, because good and evil is written on our hearts, and so we live in accordance to good and evil. And so it's interesting when the number one question that unbelievers have as to, or kind of argument as to why God doesn't exist, is they would say it's called the problem of evil, that God can't exist because if he was all good, he wouldn't allow evil. But it's interesting, they really can't even make that claim, because they, being an unbeliever, being an atheist, someone who doesn't believe in God, can't believe in evil because it's a made-up thing for them. We can believe in evil because God has told us this is good, this is evil. And so we have a way to define it that's outside of us, okay? And so all that to sum all of that up, to say one of the reasons we believe that there is a God is because all people everywhere believe in good and evil. We may quibble over exactly what's good, exactly what's evil, but we all have this these strong beliefs and feelings that there are right things and there are wrong things. And that's because God has written his law on our hearts. Because of that, we believe that he exists. I hope this has been helpful to you. Catch us next week. Submit your questions, and we'll address them and answer them here. Thanks, guys. Love you.